Okay, so starting off with the analysis, we had to do 3 techniques and 2 theories. So I'll start with the techniques. I had to do 3. The first one that I looked at was lack of fidelity. So basically, fidelity is, say I shoot a gun, you'd expect to hear a pow or something like that. But lack of fidelity is the complete opposite. And I basically used a Sonic the Hedgehog clip because it was the first movie that I thought of. And I used a clip where the drones
The time
were
for talking is over.
forming up and then making that kind of sound as my example. However, lack of fidelity. So I won't go through all of everything. I'll just show you the what I'll do is I'll do the outcomes all at the end, because it saves time going back and forth. So yeah, basically, the first technique was lack of fidelity, and I will definitely be using this in my final major project. I am going to try and do an opening title sequence. I'm not too sure right now, but I think I'm going to be doing an opening title sequence. So maybe one of the clips can be building up loads of suspense, like someone's having a gunfight or something, and then all of a sudden a quack noise, as the example I used, instead of a gun shooting. That's just an idea. I'm not saying I probably will do that, but I don't know. I could do something like that in my final major project. And I was just basically speaking about why I'd use it, how I'd use it, stuff like that. I probably will use lack of fidelity, but something like this, volume, which was my second technique, I will definitely use. It's more of the drastic change in volume that I want to be focusing on, which I have stated in this. So I have said I want to be using a drastic change in volume. I will be using this and my next technique heavily in my final major project for sure. So what I basically was just talking about is how I'm going to do it. I gave a good example of a horror film that I use an example of. I'll quickly play it now just so you get the
volume itself,
the picture.
The
Basically, it's just a sudden loudness, basically. So it's quite nice and quiet.
In this scene from Psycho,
And then, like,
we can
even
see the
mute
change
at some
in
point
sound
when nothing's
having
even
a
going on.
major impact
And
on
then
the
all of a
feeling the
sudden, this geezer just gets stabbed, and then it's quite loud. So basically, I'll be using that in my final major project. I think I'm going to be doing an opening title sequence, so I'll definitely be using that. So, part of the scene. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I do want to be using drastic change of volume. But more specifically, okay, I have my example here. I'll show it now. So my example, I'll quickly let it play if it wants to play. Okay, I'll do it at the end. But more specifically, what I want to do. Okay, now it's going to play. Hold on, I'll just show you. Right, so that was my example. It's just an example. Right, so more specifically, what I want to do in my final major project, which I will be doing, I made sure that I wanted to do, like, I got this down because I wanted to learn how to properly do it. Because on YouTube, in previous projects, all I've done is normally just try and find a YouTube clip that has a good sound. I've always said in my evaluations that sound is my weak point, so I kind of wanted to focus all about sound in my. I made sure to choose sound as my specialist skill, basically. So one that I will be using a lot is rhythm. It's quite an easy one to explain. It's I used Jaws and this film, Any Given Sunday, as an example of how rhythm works successfully well. I spoke about how there's 2 different types of rhythm. Most people just think it's one. However, it's the sounds like music building up tension or whatever, but it's also you can use it in speech, which is good to mention. However, I will probably just be using the rhythm of music in my final major project, just because I don't think I'm going to include too much speech in mine, if any, to be honest with you. So yeah, I spoke about here the common misconception is rhythm is only in the sound. However, it can be used as speech, basically. So I use this example, but this is my final example I'm going to play. Yeah. Bang. Right, you understand that? All right, that's basically the end of the 3 techniques. I think it went well overall. There was a couple strong points. I done lack of fidelity as a kind of. I wanted to get to know what lack of fidelity means, but I don't know how I'm going to incorporate it in my final major project, to be honest. So that's probably like one of the weak points. However, I definitely will be using volume and rhythm. So in the future, obviously, the final major project, when it comes to research and planning, stuff like this, the analysis stage, I will make sure to do only things that I know 100% I will be using. So I will definitely do volume and rhythm, but I'm just a little bit iffy on the lack of fidelity. I probably should have, I probably would have best off trying to find a different technique that I can use, because where it's a good technique to use and it's good to know for the future. I'm not sure if I will be using it. I don't want to force it in my final major project just because I know what it is, basically. But overall, I think I've done a pretty good job identifying the techniques and actually learning them, and then obviously producing them. So we'll move on to the two theories, which is basically just books. I think it's in research. Yeah, so the book analysis. One thing I really wanted to do was match cuts. I done it okay, but I'll speak about that later. I didn't really do it perfect, to be honest with you. I basically just talked about match cuts, really. Showed a little bit of an example, and then stuff like that. I definitely will be using match cuts again. It's something that I will add character 100% to my final major project, especially in opening title sequences, in my opinion. So I just looked at it, spoke about stuff like this, and to be honest, this was a good task for me because obviously I didn't identify it, but I included a lot more detail in the books than I did for the free techniques. So maybe next time I need to be a little bit more consistent in having both the same amount of detail, not just one really good and one kind of meh. So I need to make sure to focus on being consistently good, if that makes sense. So I do like the books. I think I've done a pretty good job on them. I also, the second theory I done was echo and reverberation. I knew how to do echoes in Premiere Pro and kind of what effect they make. However, I didn't really know too much how to make it sound like realistic. I knew how to delay audio and just get an echo, but I wanted to focus on getting that effect of it actually echoing. So I done that. So I just used a couple of examples, stuff like this. I will definitely be using echoes in my final major project, so it was good to know. But the one thing I didn't really like with this whole thing, as I said, it was good, but I wish I could be a little bit more consistent. And I need to for the final major project, I need to focus on being consistent, not being good at some points and then pretty bad at the others. So overall, I think it done quite well. I'll quickly show you the outcomes of the match cut and the echo and reverberation. So that will be on outcomes. I don't know why I got them on two different things, but I'll quickly show you them now. So what I have done, wait, hold on, it's on experimentation. So what I have done, if I click the right thing, I need a back button. That's something I need to talk about. I need a back button on Wix. I keep forgetting to put. I probably should do a back button. So this is. I'll show them in order. However, I won't show you these two because I have already showed you them, but it's just there. So I'll show you these in order. I won't show it all, but you get it. So this is Tom's task. I'll show you a little bit. It's 3 minutes long, so I won't show everything. But we just done a couple of different shots. You can kind of tell. I'm not gonna sit here and go through all of them, but you can kind of tell. You can tell what's going on, what techniques I'm learning. This is actually pretty good. All right, I'll play the rest on mute. Actually, this is actually pretty good because all these things that we learn, we've never done before. If I just show you an example, this is one. This is really cool in my opinion. The sliding shots. Never used a slider before. Always wanted to, and yeah. So all of these techniques and practical sessions with Tom, they actually really help. Obviously, tracking shot is a little bit basic, but apart from that, like I haven't really I've never used a zebra, which basically identifies the bright spots in a thing. Never used it before, so this task was actually very helpful. But let me just show you the outcome. So this is the match cut. Pretty simple, you get it. Just water changing into a thing. I will definitely try to use that in. Well, not try. I will use that in my final major project because it's a great technique, and if used correctly, it will be very, very good. Now, I do, in terms of doing stuff better, I could have done a bit. I didn't really have any ideas, to be honest with you. So I kind of just, the first thing I saw was a tap. I thought, yeah, waterfall. I definitely want to be in future experiment. Try and go a little bit deeper and think what is actually going to be a good effect and not just see, okay, that would do. That's definitely something I need to focus on. The next one is echo. It's very simple, but I'll just quickly show you it. If it plays, I'll probably have to go on YouTube, or I just fiddle around with it. Let me go on YouTube. It's a pretty simple effect, but always nice to know, so I'll quickly play it.
Action. Action.
And there we go. Right, as I said, it's very simple. I knew how to delay audio, but I didn't exactly know how to get the effect so you can hear like the reverberation, just trying to add to it. It sounds good, but it doesn't sound like in-your-face echo, if that makes any sense. So definitely next time, if I'm going to be putting it in my FMP, which I believe I am, I'm going to try and make it a little bit stronger, because it kind of fades out a little bit too quiet, if that makes sense. So the next one is the lack of fidelity and also fidelity. So I done both just to show. So that was obviously fidelity of someone clapping and making a clapping noise. So pretty simple. But now this is lack of fidelity. So something that's not what it's supposed to be, basically.
Range is hot.
Just start when I call shooter ready, you'll hear the buzz.
Okay.
Then start shooting.
Let's make it happen,
Ready?
Zachary.
Stand by.
No pressure. Okay. Oh!
Okay, yeah, pretty simple. As I said, I wish I kind of... it's definitely a good technique to know and know how to kind of do it briefly. However, I wish I focused on something that I would actually 100% use in my final major project. I might use it in my final major project, but I'm not too sure, to be completely honest with you. I kind of did I'll be honest. It was a little bit lazy from me. I probably should have. Dive deeper. Okay, I'm not going to use that. Let me go back to the drawing board and see what I can do that I will 100% use. I slacked off a little bit, to be completely honest with you. So next time, final major project, I will definitely make sure to 100% what I'm researching in. Make sure I do in a final major project, because it's just wasting my own time, basically. But that's going to be it for the analysis and also research, I believe. We get to the planning, which is a little bit easier to talk about. Basically, we done a pre-mortem pretty early on in the course project, and it's basically just how. So you can read it. How can you identify evidence? Sorry, problem solving. Basically, preparing me for the course. It was a little bit different than our previous projects. So yeah, basically, we identify early on how we can evidence problem solving, which I have done, and basically everything that we need before the outcome, during the outcome, after the outcome, planning everything that that can go wrong, that might go wrong, and this is the table here. Things that could go wrong. Literally identified everything. So just in the making process, we're prepared. So say I for one of my experimentations, the camera breaks for some reason. We know how to overcome that, how to plan to prevent it, which we've done, and how I will evidence it. So that got me used to it. So for the experimentation, stuff like that, I used... when I was about to record, I made sure to open up the pre-mortem, this table, and just go through everything just in case something happens. Luckily, nothing did. Then we had the presentation, which we basically just identified what we are going to do early on. So I like stuff like this. It keeps it nice and organised. So I had the 3 techniques, and then the 2 theories, which were the 2 books. Then the project proposal, which we do every project. Basically just telling what we're going to do, the project concept, and then how we're going to plan the evaluation. So I spoke about, I'll be recording me talking over it, which I'm doing right now, basically just planning what I'm going to be doing. So it keeps it nice and organised, and that's going to be it for planning. It just keeps it nice and organised, thankfully. And then we move on to experimentation I've showed you. So what I move on now is the problem solving. So what I've done for problem solving is, first off, in the first week, we had to do a PowerPoint, the one I showed where it said the 3 techniques and the 2 theories. It didn't save, so I had to do it all again. So what I've done is I made sure to turn on auto-save, so basically it saves every 10 minutes, quite self-explanatory. The next one is the radiator broke when filming our interrogation scene. So yeah, I had to delay the filming of that. And then the only other problem was there was a problem solving the Pi computers. Basically, they just didn't work. So, yeah, they didn't let us log in, stuff like that. So problem solving altogether, it didn't. There wasn't many problems to face, and I believe that's pretty much the end of the evaluation. Overall, I am quite happy with how the project went. I learned a lot of new, useful skills that I will take into the final major project. As I said, the only thing that I wish I'd done a little bit better is, one, be consistent over the whole, every task, not just focus being on good one and then slacking off for the other ones. Make sure I'm consistently good and consistently focused on all of them, and then only research and do stuff on things I am 100% going to be doing in the FMP. So overall, I am quite happy though.